Okay, now that all of us are disgusted enough about
Yeah,
this
I think
video,
we did a pretty good job of discussing the viewers.
yeah, it gets
It
worse.
gets worse, folks.
Yeah, there was an article written by Bob Potter called A Holocaust Memorial with the Jehovah's Witnesses. And this is from the Investigator 84, May of 2002. And it was an article that he wrote. And I'm just going to highlight a few things here. I can put the link below. You can go look it up on JW Facts. Okay, now it starts off with a little more than 20 years ago, I was busily engaged researching the Jehovah's Witnesses, preparing my DPhil thesis at the University of Sussex. I found it quite distasteful, therefore, that Jehovah's Witnesses had set up an exhibition as part of the university's Holocaust Memorial Day on 23rd January 2002. Okay, now he goes on to describe this display that was there, and he noticed that they had put an educational program that was available in 24 languages, and it involved videotapes and worksheets and lesson plans, the whole study guide, the whole thing to do research about this. Okay, so then he says, in almost every respect, the material misreports the history of the Jehovah's Witnesses or Bible students and their relationship with the Hitler regime. Their presence at Sussex University's event as in other educational institutions was an attempt to use the Holocaust tragedy for publicizing their doctrines. Okay, so then over here, okay, now he quotes the Golden Age magazine of February 23rd, 1927. Be it known once and for all that those profiteering, conscienceless, selfish men who call themselves Jews and who control the greater portion of the finances of the world will never be the rulers of this new earth. God would not risk such selfish men with such important position.
You can't get much more anti-Semitism than that.
Yeah.
See, Jehovah's Witnesses, think about what was printed back then by your president, Rutherford.
Yeah, and it's interesting because going back to what we said, how witnesses had it a little bit easier than the Jews,
Yeah.
he quotes in this article from the estate of Lena Heydrich, the widow of the late SS Obergrubenführer Reinhard Heydrich, and it says, the records of the Bible students' fortunes in this period read rather differently from that of the millions who still remained in the Nazi camps. The yearbooks of Jehovah's Witnesses documents dozens of examples, like the 42 brothers building a house for an SS official at Lake Wolfgang, who were able to go onto the lake in the evenings and entertain themselves with folk songs and concert pieces. I'm sure the Jewish people and others would have loved to have been able to do that.
Oh yeah, and that's probably where they really came up with the song, We're Jehovah's Witnesses. See,
yeah.
remember all the stories we heard that those songs were written in the prison camps? It was probably when they was on the lake building this house.
Yeah. So he goes on to explain, and discuss that his disgust.
Yeah, he's thoroughly disgusted with Watchtower.
And this memorial they had set up, and he's accusing them of doing it just to give out their propaganda and their doctrines, and that was the only reason. Okay, now here is an interesting thing. It's an open letter from M. James Penton, PhD, to Milton G. Henschel, an open letter, and it's dated August 11th, 1995, and it's addressed to Milton Henschel, who was the president at that time. It says, Dear Mr. Henschel, yesterday I obtained a copy of the August 22 Awake magazine with its articles on the Holocaust. Who spoke out? On reading the articles in that issue of Awake, I was thoroughly shocked and disgusted. The Watchtower has long attempted a cover-up of the most dishonest sort. While your organization properly censures other religious communities for their compromises with and support of Nazism, it tries to claim that Jehovah's Witnesses and the Jehovah's Witnesses alone never were guilty of such compromise, as we've seen from the video.
Yeah.
Yet history tells a different story. Okay, the Erklärung, it's German, or declaration published by the Watchtower Society at the Berlin Convention of Jehovah's Witnesses in June of 1933 is in itself clear evidence that the Society's president, Judge J.F. Rutherford, as accompanied by N.H. Knorr, manifested anti-Semitism, hostility to Great Britain and the United States, and to the League of Nations. Furthermore, the declaration clearly states that Jehovah's Witnesses supported the aims of the Third Reich.
Yeah.
So very interesting letter here. And he sent a photocopy of the letter that Rutherford sent to Hitler. He's got, scans of this 1934 yearbook and a copy of the spring 1990 issue of the Christian Quest. But unfortunately, it doesn't say what was in there and why he sent this.
But further research will be able to show that Watchtower in the early days very much did support Hitler in his efforts to rule the world, basically. But now we're going to get to the greatest gem of all. We're going to expose the reason why Watchtower did what they did with this video.
And then we mentioned before how we felt it was trying to evoke an emotional response from the viewers, mainly Jehovah's Witnesses, into believing all of this.
Yeah, but there's also a bigger thing at stake too.
Yeah. Now right here I have court documents.
Court documents.
And it is the United States District Court for the Eastern District of New York. And it is a document that Watchtower has prepared to the Holocaust Victim Assets Litigation.
Okay,
yes, the Swiss bank litigation.
Before we go any further, we need to get two dates in mind. This was produced in 1996. Guess when the litigation started?
This is December 7th, 1999.
It's all about getting money, people. It's all about getting the money that was for Holocaust victims.
Now, there's a whole bunch of legalese here, but I'm just going to read just a few paragraphs that gives you why. Okay. Since Jehovah's Witnesses were among the earliest groups to be targeted for sentencing to concentration camps, they were often used in the actual construction of the camps. In some cases, the SS-run camps could, in themselves, be considered commercial enterprises that benefited from slave labor. Because the witnesses had been in the camp system for long periods of time, they sometimes worked for the camp administration, but without due compensation, of course. So, if I understand this legalese, witnesses were used, or the Bible students, Jehovah's Witnesses, whatever you want to call them, were used to actually build these camps.
Slave labor, mind you. Remember that phrase, because I'm going to get back to that.
So now they're appealing to this litigation for, the assets litigation to the court and saying, you use the Nazis used Jehovah's Witnesses to do slave labor and all this. So they weren't compensated.
We want our fair money, because you got to remember what this is all boiling down to at this point in time in history. There was money located in Switzerland, German money, if I remember right.
Yeah,
they were going to allocate it to the families of the Jewish victims of the Holocaust. Watchtower's trying to get their hands on some of that money.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, so this it's good. It's talking about the Gestapo and how they confiscated printing equipment, burned stocks of literature whenever it was found, and hunted down and executed many of those involved with the underground work. Thus, the nonviolent resistance offered by the witnesses increased the financial, material, and physical losses they sustained.
I wonder how many nights these knucklehead Watchtower lawyers stayed up just writing this. Would be remember the emotional response. This came out first. 3 years later, they're making an appeal for the money.
Yeah, and then they wonder why lawyers have no respect whatsoever. Okay. Number 3, the nonviolent, non-political resistance of Jehovah's Witnesses to Nazi policies is distinctive for its duration and consistency. Back to the more severe thing. It is not possible to quantify the losses suffered by families whose mothers or fathers were given lengthy sentences in camp or prison because of their faith. Beyond the lost wages, lost property, and lost years are the intangible cost suffered by all victims of Nazi terror. Unlike other victims, however, most witnesses had a choice. Generally, they were targeted solely because of their religious convictions. Witnesses were offered the opportunity to avoid persecution simply by renouncing their beliefs. Therefore, by virtue of the length of the persecution and the nature of their resistance, we ask that the court grant special consideration to the applications
They want more money.
of witness survivors or their heirs, which will no doubt be few in number. Further, the court may allocate a portion of the settlement to be used for purposes of Holocaust education and remembrance. Combating intolerance and indifference is extremely important work. Extremely important. The Watchtower and individual Jehovah's Witnesses have expended hundreds of thousands of dollars to promote awareness of the Holocaust and its lessons. The Watchtower and its affiliate branch offices have made educational and academic presentations free of admission charge in the United States, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Israel, and most countries of Eastern and Western Europe. More than 400 seminars and exhibitions have been held in Germany alone, often in cooperation with concentration camp memorials, research institutions, and museums. Now remember, the journalists mentioned that they were doing this only to propagate their, beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the few remaining witness survivors have used their waning vitality to speak to young people, educators, and scholars about their experiences and those of their martyred fellow believers. If the court sees fit to allocate a portion of the settlement to the Watchtower to continue this work of remembrance, we believe it would constitute fitting recognition of individual witnesses who suffered and died while maintaining their faith and human values. Some witnesses died prematurely and left no heirs to make a claim to the Swiss
Give
bank.
the money to me! Give it to me!
To the Swiss bank settlement fund. However, the legacy of spiritual resistance that they left behind is of great value in the education of future generations about the importance of standing up for the dignity and value of human life. Representing these individuals, the Watchtower would be pleased to devote any allocated money solely to the interest of Holocaust education and the remembrance of the prisoners who bore the purple triangle, according as the court might stipulate.
Okay, people, it's all about the money.
Okay, so just a little bit more because we're running out of time here. Watchtower acknowledges that no amount of money can fully compensate for the losses of any victims of Nazi persecution. However, if the funds provided by the Swiss bank settlement can symbolically or practically mitigate the human suffering of survivors or their families, or if it can advance the work of education and remembrance, the money will have been well spent.
Money grabbing sons of bitches is what Watchtower is.
Wherefore, in light of this information, Watchtower respectfully requests an award in harmony with the just and equitable principles outlined in the settlement order, December 7th, 1999. And then it's signed by Carolyn Waugh, WAH, Associate General Counsel, Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Pennsylvania.
That's why Watchtower produced this 3 years, because Watchtower knew that there was going to be money available for the Holocaust victims. That's why this video came out, so that Watchtower can get their hands on that money.
Yeah.
But isn't it funny? Jehovah's Witnesses volunteered their time to build concentration camps, but yet Jehovah's Witnesses volunteered their time to work for a publishing company, and we got no compensation at all.
Yeah.
Pushing your lies.
So as you can see, this thing about the Jews and the Nazi persecution has suddenly turned into a money scam. So, gotta go, everybody.
Ari, I hope this works for you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ari. You're the one that got us started on this.